Hello there, what is going on everyone? Today we are going to be looking at some Rebel list building ideas for Star Wars Armada. These are going to be more competitive foundations for a list or cornerstone pieces for a competitive Rebel build for Star Wars Armada. According to me, not necessarily all competitive lists. We're not going to be looking at like every Rebel build that's ever won, but when I am trying to field a Rebel list and I want to do something that's a little more on the competitive side rather than the casual side, these are some ideas that will get me started on list building and some hallmarks and some favorites, some oldies, some newies, some baddies, and some gooies. No, I did not even gooies. I just wanted something to rhyme with newies because none of those words make any sense. But basically, I'm going to be taking a look at maybe like a ship with some build ideas or a squadron combination or something like that that forms a good building block for a competitive list. I did a similar video for Star Wars Armada with the Imperial faction. So if you want to look at that, I will have links at the end of the video, and you can check out plus plenty more Star Wars Armada content, Star Wars tabletop gaming, science fiction tabletop gaming, lots of tabletop gaming videos. So if you are interested in this kind of stuff, you are in the right place. Hopefully you stick around and keep the discussion going. Other social media links are in the video description below, so you can check out all of that great stuff. And I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down in the comments what are some of your go-tos for the Rebellion's fleet. What of the Rebel fleet massing near Sullust? I want to hear from you. I don't know why I'm doing that voice. It's like a Scottish emperor. Hello, Lord Vader. Bring me your bagpipes and your lightsaber. Oh, yes, right. We're gonna destroy the rebels. Ugh. I don't know. Why do I just break out into voices in the middle of videos? I don't know. With all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. So, first thing, I'm gonna start with kind of a classic, but a kind of a more particularized classic. It's this TRC 90, right? So, look, a CR90A with turbo laser reroute circuits is always good, but if you toss Jaina's Light on there, then you just have a really good CR90 that works in just about any Rebel build. But if you want to duplicate this, you can do it without the title, of course, but multiple CR90s are extremely effective, and they get around a lot of nasty defense token, like heavily defensified ships. You know, you might have an enemy Starhawk out there that's got like braces for days, but if you have a lot of incoming fire, especially incoming fire with dice fixing, like the TRC happens to give the CR90. It's going to wear down your opponent's defense tokens. Even a super Star Destroyer can't withstand that many shots from that many sources. And hey, the fact that it has 2 braces is great, but that's not going to matter that much when you've got like 6 CR90s and then other things also firing at you. And you can have a lot of ships shooting if you're going with cheap and effective ships like the CR90 with turbo laser reroute circuits. But I always like to throw, if I'm just putting one in there, I always like to throw Jaina's Light on a CR90A for a number of reasons. There are objectives that your opponent might have that are going to put asteroids all over the place, and you sometimes have to land on them or avoid them. And the CR90 allows you just to completely ignore a big part of the game, and it allows it to have a lot more survivability. So landing on those obstacles isn't going to do anything to you. Also, your shots aren't going to be obstructed by, when you're shooting through those obstacles, and you can stay on the other side of those obstacles and then have extra obstruction protection from you while not suffering from it on your own shots. So it's just like Jaina's Light is one of the best titles in the game, and you throw it for only 2 more points onto this already very cheap and a very effective ship, and you have this amazing extra shooter that works in any Rebel build. I thought it was a great idea to start out with something like that. Also, I want to point out that I typically do like a top 5 list kind of ideas, but similar to the Empire, I made this one 6. So we're going to have 6 ideas to talk about for these list building kind of, little feeders to kind of start you out. Next up is, look, it's the cheapest anti-squadron screen that has a lot of survivability. Awings as a whole are Awings are just a great squadron for the Rebels. But if you throw Shara Bey and Tycho Selchu in there, you got 2 of the best scatter aces in the game, and they have counter. So another thing that's just great about these is they work well with a lot of different rebel ideas, a lot of different things. Like if you're trying to run Commander Sato, for example, A-Wings are a great option, especially these two. Because you know, like, first off, Sharabe is tough to kill. People going after her tend to die very, very quickly just by shooting her, because she's got that counter 3, and of course the crits also add a damage to the damage total. So she's got a really good chance of putting 2 or even 3 damage back every time she's shot. Plus she's got the scatter and the brace on top of that. And 4 hull, and if you happen to, like, maybe get her close enough to an asteroids where she does get to move and then heal up again, makes it really, really good. On top of that, you've got Tycho Selchu, who also has got counter 2. Doesn't have the, you know, not as deadly of a counter, but he can just move. And he can just ignore the whole rule of the game about, like, oh, and was I tied down? I don't care, I'm moving anyway. So he gets to also, like, easily repair himself on the station, but then also move to be in range of another ship that happens to need squadrons. So this way, you know, different things can happen. Also, other objectives that want you to be doing shots, especially from you know, from the rear arc or something like that. They just work really well with all of these. Now, if you want more of a squadron presence, A-Wings in general are already very good, so you can add some more A-Wings onto these two. But they're just, it's, you know, 16 and 17 points. It's not too bad. And then that in a lot of builds, especially if you don't want to go squadron heavy, just having these two is going to slow down a lot of squadron attacks, a lot of squadron balls, and it's going to make it to where you slow down that that squadron attack significantly, and don't have to pay nearly as much to do it. So these two are amazing, and they're kind of a go-to for a lot of rebel builds that I'll consider running. Moving forward, the Assault Frigate is Assault Frigate Mark II-A. Now, like, look, Assault Frigates are great all-around ships. Their only problem is their model is physically a little on the ugly side. But then again, some folks do like it. But if you take the looks of the ship aside and just look at the data on the ship card, it's a great, well-balanced, cost-effective ship, priced appropriately, does a little bit of everything, does everything moderately good. And the fact that it performs so many very different roles is super cool. But I love the idea of salvo working so well with this ship, and there's lots of different ways to get salvo, and kind of capitalizing with Paragon. So this works better if you have, like, a lot of ships, but the idea with this kind of build here is that Paragon says when attacking a ship that you've already attacked, you can add a black die to your attack pool. And this is a way to get a lot of extra black dice. What I like Spinal Armament on here because it basically makes all my attack arcs the same. Because I want to have multiple shots, and then I've got local fire control and reactive gunnery on this ship. So this way I'll have lots of abilities to salvo, and it's got a good salvo. It's got 2 red and a blue. So it's got a great natural built-in salvo. You can swap out Spinal Armament for like linked turbo lasers or something like that, which is not a bad option here as well. But this generally is a ship that I'm going to put into a rebel fleet that has a little additional dice fixing, whether it's something like Home 1 or we've got Intensify Firepower in the build, which is probably the better option. It works really well with an Intensify Firepower rebel build. But the idea here is that if I've got a lot of ships, maybe I've got a Pelta with Intensify Firepower, a couple of small ships, maybe some CR-90s, something like that, I get Paragon in a place where it's going to get shot. I can lead with this ship. People that do shoot it, I will salvo them. I'll have lots of options of salvo because I have reactive gunnery and local fire control. And then what I'll do is I activate this ship later, maybe last, once I have 2 shots on people who've already shot me. If they choose not to shoot me, then that's also good too, because I want to put this guy in a position where he's the only one getting shot, or at least the closest, or their best shot would be on him. And so if they choose not to shoot him, that's great. But if they do choose to shoot him, then I get to salvo, so I get extra dice on them there. And then I get to attack them. Paragon triggers on both shots. I get 2 extra black dice. If I've got concentrate fire, I can add a third extra black die. And I've got just good, well-rounded attacks all around. It's a fun ship, and it's a bit threatening. And it still does so many different things good, and it's got really good arcs all around, and it has nice anti-squadron dice as well. I just really like Paragon since Salvo has come out. Makes it really cool. It used to be a title that like it would only really work if you had double arc on somebody, and then you could like shoot them, and then the second shot would give you 1 die. But now with Salvo, it can give you 2 extra black dice, and that's really cool. Even 3 if you have concentrate fire, which is kind of the way to go. So I like it. It's a fun thing, and since the assault frigate is just an overall really good ship, it just also fits into a lot of different rebel builds, but preferably high activation rebel builds. Next up, the MC30. Look, MC30s are awesome, and there's a certain kind of go-to build if you're running a single MC30. It involves foresight. You know, the MC30s, you kind of have to have a title on them. Foresight is currently like the hot title, although it used to be Admonition. Admonition's still a very good title, but Foresight got better with the Clone Wars because we had the changes to how your evade token is going to work. And so now, you know, Foresight being able to double up on evades makes it really survivable, and it's a really good token. And Foresight's just a great title for that. We give it a couple of, really strong weaponries. We give it XI7 because that's just awesome. And it's, it just works with all of this. Give it Ordnance Experts because this is a black die. This is the black die delivery platform of choice for close range rebels. And we give it Advanced Proton Torpedoes so we can reroll those black dice into that black crit and, really, really hurt a big nasty enemy ship. And we give it Lando. You have to put Lando on an MC30 because it's got all of these tools to help it, to deal with, re-rolling dice or outright canceling dice. It's got lots of shields. It can redirect all those shields. But every once in a while, you're just going to have that really, really nasty hit that bypasses all of that, or is just much, much too big, too much damage for you to deal with. Lando is there to keep it alive when everything else fails it. And it needs to be kept alive because it has to get close. It has to land in that spot where it can get that double arc, front and side, or maybe 2 side arc shots, which can sometimes happen. But the MC30, it has to live long enough to get super, super close. And with only 4 hull, it's not going to do that unless you have an insurance policy. And Lando is pretty much that insurance policy. This also works great in, if you're playing like a zombie fleet. What I mean by that is if you've got General Riken as your commander and you're trying to like make sure a ship can stay alive before it can activate no matter what, it can also work really well with that. But an MC30 works great in just about any rebel fleet. If you need a damage dealer, this is your guy. So it's a really cool ship. Very, really cool. Worth taking a look at. Another option is it's a squadron option. This one you can do a lot of or a little bit of squadrons, but this is good for like at least 4 squadrons, is Janors and X-Wings. This has been a go-to of mine for a long time, and it's a very modular type of build that can scale with whether you want a lot of squadrons, a little bit, or only a few. The idea here is, look, Janors is a great ability. She used to be even better. So this was a real big go-to in the early days of Armada. But since they nerfed Intel a little bit, it's slightly less good, but still quite very good. Janors isn't really being taking in your builds anymore for Intel as much. She's more or less going into a build like this for her ability. It's while a friendly squadron at distance 1 to 2 is defending, it can spend your defense tokens. So this is so that X-Wings surround her, and you run multiple X-Wings with Jan. You don't just run 1. You run like 3 or 5 X-Wings with Jan. And they're not super expensive, so this won't necessarily completely max you out on squadron points if you want to go for like a mid-level squad build. This is a really nice way to do it. because all those X-wings have escort, so nobody can attack Jan, pretty much. And the other beautiful thing is that when somebody's going after those X-wings, the accuracies won't matter. They're not going to be able to stop the brace on those X-wings, so you can just kind of spend Jan's tokens at will. It's a beautiful thing, and it's not because you're not spending the defender's tokens. This also does work well with things like bigs and other escort kind of mechanics. But at the cheapest level, just basic X-wings and Jan is a great way to get a mid-level squadron presence. And also, while it is a nasty kind of screen that can definitely slow down a lot of enemy ships, because again, the X-wings have 5 hull, they've got escort. Now they also all have brace that can't be kind of stopped, which is just groovy as heck. But X-Wings are also offensively threatening against a wide variety of platforms. They're an all-around good squadron. 4 blue against enemy squadrons is pretty consistent, pretty reliable. You're going to often get that accuracy. If you need the accuracy, you're going to often get at least 2 damage against your targets. A lot of times you'll get 3 damage. And of course, this does combo well with other things that boost squadron attack. And of course, the weapons teams being what they are, there's plenty of options. So you can put flight controllers on some of your carriers and do that. But X-Wings also have bomber, and they've got a red die, which is not bad if they're attacking a ship. Frankly, you've got the double damage on there, you've got the hits, and you've got the crits or the crit. So they're a good, well-rounded squadron, and they pull really great double duty with Jan, kind of helping them have brace when normally they wouldn't at all. It works for just about any kind of rebel fleet you're looking. As long as you have more than like 20 points to spend on squadrons, throw Jan rather, and Anne, but throw Janors in there. At least 3 X-wings. That gives you 4. That gives you 2 more deployments. Also, it's not gonna, don't have to rob the bank to do it. It's just a good overall idea to consider for the rebels. And I've got and this one is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite newer things. It's the Redemption and Auxiliary Shields team. This is a beautiful thing. I talked about this a little bit in the Empire builds with Auxiliary Shields team on Architons, but it's especially nice with Nebulons. And, frankly, any fleet that can be running Auxiliary Shields team or that just wants to benefit from Redemption. This is a double. Again, this is working on 2 different levels. So first off, let's talk about Redemption. Redemption just gives basically your whole fleet an extra engineering point every time they do an engineering command. This is a big deal for lots of rebel ships. It turns an assault frigate into a 5 engineering value effectively. It gives a lot of the rebels have only 2 engineering. Your hammerheads, your CR90s, right? This now allows them to be able to do an engineering dial. Now that can get rid of a critical hit or a damage card, which otherwise they used to not be able to do that. So that's really cool. It also powers up those tokens. Those tokens that would be half, they're gaining 1 additional engineering point. So it powers up the tokens as well, and turns a lot of big ships into even nastier big ships. So I love it. I love what it can do. And it's especially good with other Nebulons too. A lot of people don't run many Nebulons, if any. But I love Nebulons. I love to run lots and lots of Nebulons, especially with Akbar, because that's sort of a gag. But outside of the gag Akbar Nebulon list that I run, because it actually is surprisingly effective. One of the things that made it so effective was this ship, and especially its combination with Auxiliary Shields team. So the Auxiliary Shields team lets me power up my side shield on this guy. And since I'll have an extra engineering point, first turn, I can just be like, all right, that's 4 points. So that's 1 extra shield and 1 extra shield. Works out perfectly. If you don't have Redemption, then you have to do like 1 on the side and then pull 1 from the rear and put it to the other side. And then next turn, also engineer again, maybe take a token so you can kind of power up that rear shield and do all of that stuff. But I don't have to do that with Redemption. Any other ships that are trying to do the same thing also won't have to do that with Redemption. Again, it does have the range of 1 through 5, so you can't be too far away, but 1 through 5 is a pretty big bubble for Redemption to work off of. And what also I love about this kind of combo is that like the Nebulons are weak because of their side shields. That's what makes them weak, and not having, not natively having the redirect token. Obviously, there's another title that can give them the redirect token, but Auxiliary Shields team powers up both of those sides and makes this ship a lot more survivable. That one extra shield on the side, and then the ability to recover shields much more easily with Redemption, makes this ship like so much more survivable than it ever was before. Crits are going to have a much harder time getting through. Plus, that evade has already gotten better across the board, so that makes the Nebulon just overall, its survivability has been going up and up and up. You run these two together, it makes this individual ship really good, but you also have that bubble that's affecting the whole rest of your fleet, and it's just a really winning combination. I love it with other Nebulons, and there's other things that you can put on this ship too, if you're depending on if you're going to be attacking squadrons, activating squadrons. You can do the escort version instead of the support refit. So there's different, you can run on either version of the Nebulon. I just went on the cheaper one for this because, again, Nebulon's also, it's a 5-hull ship. You can have a lot of shields in this configuration. It's only 51 points base cost. So, you can do a lot with it. It's got 2 braces also. So when you increase the shields, and have 2 braces, it's it ends up being a tough ship, a tough nut to crack. And so I really love that, and what else it can do for your fleet. Again, anything that kind of helps out your whole entire fleet is super, super cool. And those are 6 of my kind of starter ideas for more serious and competitive Rebel lists. It's not the full lists. Again, I have plenty of full lists that I've done videos on, and also if you check a lot of my tournament reports, you can see full list builds there. But these are some of the starting foundations towards building those lists. Hopefully you guys like this one. Let me know what you want to see next down in the comments below. That is going to do it for today. I want to thank you guys so much. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys help make this channel possible. I will talk to you later. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes. Always wash your socks.